Now, my next guest led the investigation inside the State Department into the origins of the coronavirus. David Asher spearheaded a task force for the US government into COVID-19, and he was specifically looking at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. During his years in the State Department, he led investigations into nuclear, biological, and chemical weapons proliferation. His experience also includes investigations into counterterrorism operations, but notably, the nuclear proliferation investigations that he did, they were in North Korea, in Pakistan, in Iran, so significant. And then he turned his attention to this. He served under both Republican and Democrat administrations at senior levels. I spoke to him earlier today, and as you all know, I've been reporting on the origins of the pandemic for nearly a year now. But what he said in this interview shocked even me. He spoke about workers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology being hospitalized with COVID-like symptoms. And he said that this might be the very first cluster of the pandemic. He also said there's some evidence to suggest that COVID-19 might have been developed as part of a vaccine program. And he even said that that vaccine might be an antidote to a bioweapon. He said there's evidence that China is running a bioweapons program inside the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and that this is all very possible, that this is how COVID-19 emerged. He said this is just one theory that is on the table, that is an active line of inquiry by the US State Department and agencies. This might sound shocking or crazy, but this is a very serious individual. He's led a distinguished career, and he was the person leading the investigation into COVID-19 inside the State Department. Most of the information in this area remains classified. Only a small part of it's been released, but this is some of the material that he was able to speak about. He's told me that he has never seen a more systematic cover-up in his career than China's COVID-19. I want to start with the origins of COVID-19, and specifically those workers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology who fell sick in the November of 2019 prior to the pandemic. This was first contained in a US State Department release in January. One of the Wuhan, so-called investigators, Marion Koopmans, who visited Wuhan, also confirmed it, but she downplayed it. She said just one or two were sick. It was nothing unusual about it. But in fact, what you can tell us today is that the three of them were so sick they ended up in hospital.
Well, I mean, there's information that they fell sick, and at least one of them was hospitalized that I'm aware of. There were multiple staff members that did have to go to the hospital and appear to have had conditions of COVID-19. You don't normally go to the hospital with influenza, especially a cluster of people. So, the WHO has been looking for its initial cluster of victims of COVID-19. And the point of the declassified information that the Secretary Pompeo provided was that we had information that there was indeed a cluster, and that they worked on COVID-19 itself or related COVID coronaviruses at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is almost too much of a coincidence to believe. But we find other information that gave us more confidence that that alone wasn't the only thing that made us feel that the Wuhan Institute was highly probably the source of the COVID epidemic. It involved other information which we put out in that statement, or our Secretary of State put out in the statement on January 15th.
David, Asher, just to clarify that there, you said they were working on a coronavirus in the laboratory. It hasn't been confirmed that they were working on SARS-CoV-2, has it? They were just working on coronaviruses.
Well, we did put out that there was work being done on rat G13, which is the Yunnan flu, which was identified by the Chinese in 2012, and incredibly mysteriously and disturbingly, given the cosmic significance of that was the first case of a coronavirus from a bat that had been proven, if their information is accurate, to infect human beings, and it killed several minors that I'm aware of. I think maybe two or I think three.
So just to clarify, those early cases from the Wuhan Institute of Virology in early to mid-November, are they being assessed, inside the U.S. State Department, inside U.S. intelligence agencies, as being the first cluster?
It was a cluster that appeared to be have symptoms consistent with COVID-19. I am confident that the information that we provided was based on accurate sources, and that we would have never provided it if we didn't believe that, based on other information, that this was the most probable source of the outbreak.
Just to be clear, during your time in the State Department, it was an active line of inquiry within the State Department that SARS-CoV-2 might have been part of a biooffensive bioweapons program that China was running.
Yes, I mean, we were looking at the origin of COVID-19 and trying to figure out where it came from, and was it related to some sort of WMD violation. That's the purpose of their Arms Control Bureau. Look, I was their senior subject matter expert. I'm an investigator. I'm a follow the money guy. The fact that they were funding this type of research from the military, to me, is highly indicative. But we'll have to see where the proof lies. There's going to be a need for a huge global investigation, well beyond the WHO. There needs to be a sort of 9/11 commission established in the United States to look at this. And so at this moment, you can't say conclusively, but what the Chinese did behaviorally, okay, which is undisputed, is they allowed a offensive-like vector in terms of its pathology, and virulence, to escape China and spread around the world. That part, and they told us that it couldn't spread human to human. That alone, whether this virus in itself and its characteristics is exceptionally virulent, as we all know. It's unprecedented in history. There's plenty of indications in the sequence itself that it may have been synthetically altered. Okay, it's got the backbone of a bat combined with a pangolin receptor binder, combined with some sort of humanized mice transceptor capability. So these things don't naturally make sense. The potential of natural evolution of COVID-19. Speaking with many scientists who follow this around the world, is that the odds are very low that this could be natural, very low.
David Asher, I want to ask you about the Wuhan Institute of Virology's virus database. This is a crucial piece of evidence that anyone you speak to mentions in trying to get to the bottom of what sort of viruses the laboratory had prior to the pandemic and whether SARS-CoV-2 was one of them. That database was taken offline in September 2019, prior to even when, the US says that the pandemic is thought to have started. Xi Zhengli, of course, says it was taken offline because there were thousands of hacking attempts on the database. This is what she told the WHO investigators just recently in their trip to Wuhan. What is the other hypothesis about why this database was taken offline, and does it at all indicate a potential earlier start date to an outbreak of the coronavirus?
Why the Chinese do these things? It's just one of a myriad of indicators of something that was troubling their government. It wasn't just that database. There were other databases that were taken offline. There was access to sequences that were, Chinese had posted actually internationally, and they tried to remove them. There was, I believe, 10 victims at a PLA hospital, which is, I believe, only one stop away on the subway from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. I think it was on December 30th that were posted on a database in Europe. And my understanding is that these people were we don't know where they worked. Did they work at the Wuhan Institute of Virology? I've heard views of foreign government people not at a classified level, at just conversational level that there's a suspicion that some of them may have worked at the Wuhan Institute of Virology, and that that's subject to debate. But what's interesting is evidence that certain scientists have found, and I let them speak to you. I can introduce you if you wish. That there was adenovirus present in some of the in the sequences that were posted in Europe publicly. And adenovirus means that there was a vaccine present for COVID-19. That could indicate that this was a biodefense program. They're putting a vaccine together, but people don't normally just develop a vaccine just in case something that they're working on that doesn't make any natural sense. Okay, it's like many generations different from the Rachi 13 that they found in Yunnan in 2012. To develop a vaccine in advance for something that would never see the light of day is sort of ridiculous, but it is totally consistent with the biological weapons program. That's what people do. They develop an antidote. You see it with the Russian and North Korean and Iranian programs with chemical neurotoxins. They have a antidote that can provide a cure. Well, a vaccine is an antidote, in effect. Whether they were developing this vaccine, if it exists, as an antidote, hard to know. It's just very, very disturbing that you'd see this adenovirus present if that's true. And I can only rely on the scientists I've spoken with.
And that was David Asher, the lead investigator into the origins of COVID-19 for the US State Department. If you want to watch the interview again, you can head to the Sky News website a bit later on, and there'll be more on that topic and on that interview in the Australian newspaper tomorrow.